Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today we're going to take a look at the Cleric. We're going to take a look at the Cleric specifically, and we're going to have him do an investigation check, or the Dungeon Crawl Classics version of an investigation check. And then we're going to have him cast a spell. Have him cast a spell Second Sight. And maybe, just maybe, he'll need to burn some luck to get that to work. So we're going to do all that, and we're going to do that in the process of telling a little bit of a story. So we're going to do all that right after this. Stay with me. So I've created a character. I've created a character called Gorhan the Cleric. And Gorhan the Cleric is a cleric of Gorhan. Gransfor is the name of the cleric, and he's a cleric of Gorhan. And here we can see his stats. He's got pretty good stats. He's got horrible stamina, right? Really low stamina, but decent strength, good personality, and great intelligence. And so he was, in his day, he was a woodcutter. So he has a hand axe, a bundle of wood, and a small sack. But his main ability is his faith, his devout faithfulness in the Gorhan, the Helmed Vengeance. And I went to the Knights in the North, and I downloaded his detailed clerical guide for that, and there has the Song of Gorhan, and in here it gives a description of Gorhan, and I like this. Visitations of the Helm Vengeance are usually marked by bloody massacre, and first-hand accounts of the God of Valor or chivalry speak of merciless spirit, of martial prowess, and an unerring blade which cuts down all that stand between it and the quarry. He's depicted as a gallant knight in full plate armor with a winged helmet, wielding a shield and a lance or a longsword, sitting atop a pale destrier. All right, going down here though, he has a couple in this addendum, in this document. The additional abilities that it grants the followers is that it replenishes 1d6 points of spent luck after successfully completing a quest. And also, the Gorhan's clerics, though, if there's a disapproval, they immediately increase their disapproval by 5. Yikes. And then, but in addition to getting some luck back after a quest, they also get, the Gorhan may see it fit to grant his followers some of these arcane spells of Eternal Champion, Magic Shield, and Strength. And then finally, the followers have the ability, it may be possible to use the ability of Lay on Hands to use it as an attack. And although the cleric still must succeed a grapple attack beforehand, that is, if Gransfor grapples a creature and does his Lay on Hands spur, he can use that as an attack instead of a boon, instead of healing. But he has to successfully touch, right, or grapple, and then apply the effect. So Gransforth is a follower of Gorhan. So in the story I have here, and then let's go through this. And then for the spells, I rolled these spells, and he got the abilities of Second Sight, Paralysis, Blessing, and Detect Magic. So in my story, one of the famed winged helms of vengeance, the iconic symbol of Gorhan, one of the helms have been stolen from the local village temple, and the priest there has come to Gransfor and asked him to help investigate and figure out what has happened, who took it, and hopefully retrieve this winged helm. And so Gransfor looks around the temple looking for clues. So here we have Father Beacon has led Gransfor into the temple of Gorhan, and on this pedestal would normally be one of the winged helm of vengeance, and it's missing. And so Father Beacon is asking Gransfor to help him investigate and figure out what has happened to where it has gone, who's taken it, and hopefully retrieve it. Gransfor is here, and he's going to do an investigation check. Now, we know that in Dungeon Crawl Classic, there is not a true investigation check. Rather, they have intelligence checks. I've seen it both ways. I've seen it both done as an intelligence or a luck check. And so in this case, I had Gransfort roll a investigation check using his intelligence, but sadly, when he did it, he rolled a 7. Now, before I did that, I decided what that the outcomes difficulty class of that roll would be. So I said the temple, if it was a 5, the temple has indeed been ransacked. The helm was the only thing that was stolen. That was what he learned. If it was a 10, he finds some dirt and has been tracked into the temple. And then 15, there'd be some footprints of bare feet. And then if it was a 20, he'd learn that the footprints were of 4 goblins that could be tracked north and out of town. So again, no true investigation. They don't have a skill called investigation, but to do investigation check, you can either use an intelligence check or a luck check. In this case, I had Gransfort do a intelligence check, but he only rolled a 7, so you only learned that indeed the temple had been ransacked and the helm was the only thing stolen. Now, Gransfort is too outraged to glean any real clues, but he tries to calm himself so he can say a prayer of second sight. All right, now to cast a spell of second sight, a cleric must make a spell check. Here in Dungeon Crawl Classic 8th printing of the Role Player's Guide, in the cleric section, under magic, it says to cast a spell, a cleric must make a spell check, and the spell check is made like any other check. Roll your 1d20, add your personality modifier, and your caster level. And so I had Gransfort do just that. And when he did, he only rolled an 8, which becomes a 10. Now, for second sight to work, you need to get a 12. So to have him do that, I had him burn 2 luck points. Looking at his character sheet, we can see he has 9 luck. So that luck score would go from 9 to 7. But then we would raise his score to a 12. And then we can read the spell. So second sight, it has a level 1. It's a level 1 cleric spell. It's a range of self. Duration lasts 1 or more rounds. The casting time takes 1 turn, and there is no save. Now, you gotta love this description in the general. Using sortilege, haruspicy, or some other method appropriate to the cleric, he augurs the future, and in doing so, the cleric gains insight about the consequences of his actions will bring. Mr. Goodman Games, come on, right? I'm a pretty well-educated man, and so these are some words that just are not common. I had to look them up. So I think you're challenging your young audience. And so sortilege, the drawing of lots for divination, or divination by lot. It's a sorcery of magic. Oh, okay, it makes sense. I didn't know the word. And then haruspicy, it's a divination by horseback. Now, of course, this is dictionary count. And then it's like, all right, dictionary.com. Well, what the heck is horsebacks? I don't know. So I had to look up that. Horsebacks. Okay, here we go. Horsebacks. It's in ancient Rome, one of a class of minor priests who practiced divination, especially from the entrails of animals killed in a sacrifice. Okay. And finally, augur. Now, I've heard of augur from playing Magic the Gathering, the augury owl, right? But so augur, I looked it up as well, just make sure. One of a group of ancient Romans, again, Roman, interesting, officials charged with observing, interpreting omens for the guidance in public affairs, or soothsayers or prophets. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Sortilege, horseby, or some other other method appropriate to cleric, he augurs the future. In doing so, the cleric gains insight about the consequences of his actions. Now, I rolled the D3 and I got the third eye. So this is the manifestation. How does the casting the spell look? So the casting spell looks like a third eye appears in the cleric's forehead. And who does that remind you of? Come on, when your third eye appears, who do you think of? You think of Doctor Strange. And you look at this, it does kind of look like the icon that I picked for Gransfort. Back to the story. Here we are. They're looking and they cast a spell. The second sight as Gransfort quiets himself and says a prayer. He can feel spiritual power beginning to slip from his mind until he reaches down and grasps his holy symbol and burns some luck. With the holy symbol of Gorhan in his hand, his mind sharpens and a spectral third eye appears in his forehead. the third eye sweeps the room. So in reality, that 10 becomes a 12, and the 12, for one round, the cleric glimpses the future. In doing so, he gains great insight into the most effective manner to complete an action. The cleric receives a +4 bonus to a single roll of his choosing on his next round, whether it's an attack roll, a damage roll, skill check, spell check, or something else. And so with the second sight active, Gorhan's third eye investigates the room, and a second investigation is attempted. But this time, a 17 is rolled. With the second sight, that bonus, it gives a total of 21. Now, Gorhan sees footprint, figures out the footprints are from 4 goblins, and their trail leads north out of town. So Gorhan investigates, enhanced by his second sight, and he spots the footprints. And furthermore, he spots the footprints leading out of the temple and follows them out of the village. And having an idea where the goblins would have gone, Gransfor goes to the local eating establishment. Gransfor goes to his local eating establishment and finds his buddy Burek Grumbleforge, the dwarf thief, or rather, not a thief, right? Not a level 1. So these are all level 1 characters. So the thief isn't really a thief. He's called a bravo, and especially in the lawful space. So he goes and talks to his buddies and asks them to accompany him on a quest, an investigation, the retrieval of the winged helm of vengeance for the Temple of Gorhan. And they accept the quest, and they start their journey out of town. They follow the trail through fields miles out of town, and the trail becomes a game trail, and they follow it to a grove of trees. And they're coming up on the grove of trees, and I imagine there is a goblin lookout, and I wonder who sees who, or who sees whom. And so I have them roll a luck check. The goblin's trail falls into a narrow game trail through a field. The 3 follow the trail a couple miles. The goblins have a scout keeping watch. I decide to have a luck check to decide if the 3 notice the scouts. Characters can make luck checks to attempt feats that succeed based on luck alone. The judge will provide the specifics of any attempt, but the attempt is usually resolved by rolling equal to or less than the characters. And so I had them roll. Gransfor has luck of 9. His 9 is reduced to 7, so he needed to roll under 7, but he rolled a 9, so he rolled above. Burek's luck is 12, and they rolled a 16, so that's above. Shank's luck is 14, and he got a 13, so he rolled under. So Shanks succeeded, and as they're walking forward, I can picture, after walking for an hour through the fields, Gorhan and Shanks shush their grumbling dwarf friend, who's grumbling about having to walk so much, and at that point, and point to a goblin perched in a tree some 10 feet above the ground. The small greenish character, a bow in his hands, arrows nearby, a sword leaning against a tree. They can see the goblin up in the tree. And this is where we're going to stop. And we're going to figure out, how do they handle with this goblin that seems to be keeping watch. So Gransfor has gone on a little adventure looking for the winged helm of vengeance. The goblins have taken him. I picked this guy up. I saw him at Gary Con, and instead of carrying him around the whole convention, I ordered him on Amazon, and he was waiting for me when I got home. The pesky little goblins. The goblins have stolen the winged helm of vengeance, and now they've tracked him down, and they've come upon scout. And while in doing that, we talked about the investigation check that turned into a cleric spell check, you burning some luck, and then we followed them out of town and did another luck check to see if we discover the scout that was watching out for him. So we covered all those things in today's episode. We also talked about the deity of Gorhan, and that's where we stop the story for today. In a future episode, we'll continue the story, and we'll talk about more mechanics as we dig deep into the mechanics and how this game works as a level 1 character, specifically with the cleric. And I hope you're liking it, and if you do, if you have thoughts of what you'd like me to cover, put it down in the comments. I'll get to it. What will happen? Will they be able to handle this? They ought to be able to handle a scout, but will they be attract the attention of anyone else? What rules are you in questioning? Put that down in the comments, and I'll see if I can get to them. And future episodes, we'll have to see what happens in the storyline and what other rules we'll hit as we do so. So thanks for joining me, and if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Otherwise, until next time, take care.